Welcome to the Reddit library. What was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? For 8th grade talent show, 2 girls sang the Mr. Bledel song. Mr. Bledel was a good-looking, recently college graduated teacher that basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I remember looking at the teacher's face, and he didn't seem very amused. God, I would hate to be that teacher. I remember in high school one young and cool English teacher had to stop teaching English to seniors because they were so obviously obsessed with him. It was gross and uncomfortable. I had a teacher that was basically the opposite. Girls were crazy about him. I had bad family issues and ended up on the streets. He actually came to see me one day and offered to let me stay at his home. I was really creeped out. I was 15 at the time. Then 3 years later, I find out he was forced to resign for sleeping with multiple students. Was in a video/film making class in high school. One group of guys did a parody of those Gatorade commercials, where the athlete's sweat is colored like Gatorade, but it was a sweaty guy having fun. Apparently there was a Gatorade spew, but the teacher just turned that hit off immediately before it got that far. I never thought I would read the words Gatorade spew together with my own 2 eyes in my entire life, yet here I am. Not a literal presentation really, but we had an assembly in high school where the students that helped plan homecoming would announce the nominations for homecoming court. It always had a cute little theme and like a short skit involved. Well, at one point the audio they were using as a cue for the skit failed. They just kind of paused for technical difficulties, but this one girl from the planning committee started singing a random Disney song a cappella while improvising a dance to go along with it, I guess as a distraction from them trying to fix the audio. She kept trying to get people to join in with her, but nobody did, and she eventually just kind of trailed off mid-song and started pouting that nobody would sing with her. Then once they got the audio fixed for the skit, she pouted and snapped the way through the rest of her lines, which made everything even more uncomfortable. The other famous one was when a girl in our class running for student government referenced a hashtag that she was trying to make popular during her campaign speech to the whole school. The hashtag was something catchy about her having a big A. There was a genuine collective yikes from the crowd when she said it. I don't think she got elected. The girl who gave the valedictorian speech at my high school graduation ended it with "What's cooler than being cool? Ice cold." The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. I was also thinking backward about the question. I thought op meant when did the school have to tell everyone to quit doing something for me? It was banning Pokemon cards in 1998 because toddlers were brawling over that first edition Charizard. For a public speaking class in college, we had to give a persuasive speech. One kid did his speech about prawn. If he had had a legitimate argument, like X work is real work, or prawn has a negative effect on a person's self-image, the speech would have been fine. We were all mature adults. But all he did was list the different kinds of prawn he liked, in detail, with visual aids. The professor stopped him after a few minutes and asked him to explain what he wanted to persuade the audience about. He answered, "Prawn is good. You can't write all that and not tell us his favorite type of prawn." I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, but I'll remember that he was into cartoon, but not A. I remember that his example was a Scooby-Doo parody, and Asian. I remember that he showed a bunch of tweets from Asa Akira. In history class, we all had to do a presentation about some sort of injustice in the world. One kid chose a prison camp for his topic. All his PowerPoint slides were photos of men being stripped, chained, whipped, sodomized, and forced to give blowjobs. We were 13. Edit. Yes, his project was about Abu Ghraib. How far did the teacher let him go before he was stopped? The second slide. Teacher interrupted to ask how many explicit pictures there were. The student showed the thumbnails of the slides, and it was something like 40 slides long. During nursing school, a guy decided to use My Little Pony figures as props to a seminar room of about 100 people. He told the class that he would refer to himself as his pony name for the duration. Don't remember what it was. Also, not that this is relevant, but he wore a black leather trench coat, and it was pretty hot in the room, yet he never took it off. Cringe. Edit. He wasn't a student, he came in to do a talk about epilepsy and his experience with healthcare. We got to review them at the end and I gave him a good score because he actually had a lot of interesting things to say about his condition, even if it was cringy. How does a Brinny survive nursing school? I've seen the culture that evolves in the classes. It's super preppy. They would be eaten alive. He wasn't a student, he came in to do a talk. Frequently we get random people in to talk about their illness or experience in healthcare. His talk was about epilepsy. I was in a Japanese film class for a credit I needed, and the final project was some open-ended paper where you got to choose the topic, and our Japanese-born teacher told us some story about a creepy neckbeard who did his on Japanese prawn, and how no one should do anything like that. Anyways, on the day it was due, the creepiest neckbeard stereotype I've ever seen, who was in my class, presented his long cringe presentation on Japanese prawn in the class that no one wanted to hear, already knowing the teacher has seen this hit before and wasn't about it at all. Edit. Just to clarify, his main talking point was about how Japanese people have a greater appreciation for big boobs than Americans. It wasn't some academic treatise on XL norms or gender expectations in prawn or anything. Not a presentation, but during our school assemblies we often had student performers, which were usually musically inclined individuals or theater kids doing a scene/monologue. One kid decided to do a stand-up comedy routine about a girl giving him a jello bob. So awkward, and the principal had to interrupt him. Thank you, Kevin. That's enough. But I haven't finished yet. Environmental science. For our final project in the class we were allowed to talk about dude decides to do his project on global cooling. But he was up there for 7 minutes explaining to the class how the earth has been getting colder and colder, and how it's eventually going to cause problems to other species. Teacher was really passionate about this class, and you could see her squirming in her seat the whole way through the presentation. Whole thing was a big WTF. His sources were online forums. An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to bully/harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated on the subject. So basically it was a class of what not to do. Those never end well. They sincerely meant to try and get people to become aware and stop it when they see it. But we never had heard of some of the tactics they described. I was once in a group that was being trained to proctor in-person tests in a college testing center, and it included a heavy dose of what to watch for. Same problem, it was basically a seminar in how to cheat better. Both of these examples remind me of reading about Colditz Castle, which was a German POW camp during WWII. They sent prisoners there who had escaped and been recaptured. Their intent was to put all of the bad eggs in one basket so they could be watched more closely. According to the author, who had been a POW there, this backfired big time. Lots of ambitious would-be escapees helping each other, benefiting from collective experience, and so on. He said it was like getting a graduate-level education in escape techniques. I went to school for computer security. In an introduction to computer security course, we had to do a project on social engineering. A student decided that for his project he was going to find a way to gain access to a chosen website. He found a small local business website, identified that the domain was registered to an email address from a local ISP called the ISP. To reset the password, they asked him for his last 4 of his SSN, so he hung up. He found the phone number of the business, so called them, and pretended to be from the ISP, offering 3 months free if the person did a 5-question survey. They accepted and answered some BS questions. Then he asked for the last 4 of the guy's SSN. which they gave no problem. He then called the ISP with the last 4, got them to reset the password of the email account. He then logged into the email and used it to get the domain registrar to send a password reset to the email, which he used to reset the password of the domain account, and deleted the email. He recorded all phone calls and screenshotted the whole process as he presented all these. We kept expecting him to say, but that would be illegal, so I didn't do X, but he went all the way. The professor finally stopped him after he said he logged into the domain registrar and told him to destroy everything and never speak of it again. I think the professor was a bit nicer than he could have been, potentially to the point of accomplice telling him to destroy evidence. Compared to some other stories in here, this is minor, but it was a group project for one of my literature classes. There were 5 people in this group. According to the rubric for this assignment, everyone was supposed to have equal speaking parts. One of the members in this group would just not stop talking. Half of their presentation was just her talking, and she went on about each of her slides for like 5 minutes. The rest of her group members had like 1 or 2 slides each, and she had like 5 or 6. She would also interject into the other group members' parts to add her opinions. The look on my professor's face screamed, just shut up already, every time she talked. Oh man. This could have been me in high school or college. I was such a know-it-all and talked way too much. I cringed so hard when I think about it.